move that I made when I was working on the California preschool curriculum. In California, we have an interesting situation because it's already a majority-minority state. And we had to think carefully about how we were going to build these language skills in a way that was going to be equivalent across diverse children and diverse cultures. So distilling from that literature, we boldly or tentatively suggested 6 principles of language learning that are the core of what we put in the California preschool curriculum, and that we believe can be used to enhance language outcomes for reading and that are perfectly evidence-based. What are they? Well, the first one I sort of hinted at. Children learn what they hear most. Frequency matters. Number 2 is that children learn words for things and events that interest them. This is where you go, duh? Right? Of course they do. We all learn about things that interest us the most. The third key feature, interactive and responsive environments build language learning the best. The fourth, children learn when something is meaningful. So you could teach them all you want, ba-oya, ba-oya, ba-oya. But they're not going to get it if it doesn't translate back into boy, and if the word boy isn't in their vocabulary. Children need to hear diverse examples of words and language structures, and this is a key feature, and one that I really hope you take to heart. Vocabulary and grammar are reciprocal processes. It's not as if just teaching vocabulary is going to do the trick. Teaching vocabulary within a strong language system, within good background knowledge, is what does the trick for helping children become good readers in the future. So let's take each one of these apart. 1. Children learn what they hear most. Frequency matters. I told you about Hart and Risley, Safran, and Fernald. These are all data about the amount and the quality of the language that young children hear. Now, Anne Fernald, in a closer look, really helps us understand this. Let's look to the right of your screen, and you see her procedure, which is called the looking while listening procedure. And it's really simple. It's like a multiple guess test for young children. What you do is on the one side you might have a dog, and on the other side you might have a baby, and you simply say, "Where's the baby? Can you find the baby? Where's the baby?" How long does it take a child to look to the right picture, the picture of the baby, as opposed to the picture of the dog? Now, what we see in the next slide, and this is going to be a little bit hard for me being a distance learner, but I hope you can see it, is that both in English and in Spanish, can you see that the 18-month-old line is below the 24-month-old line, which is below the 30-month-old line? Can everyone catch that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. What that's showing you is that the 18-month-olds don't do as well as the 24 and 30-month-olds. And it also shows you, can you see that the hump in the 18-month-old line happens after the hump in the 24 and 30-month-old line. So the 18-month-olds are responding more slowly, and they never get as good as the 24-month-olds and the 30-month-olds. And it doesn't matter whether you're learning in English or Spanish, there's an age-related issue. And this processing speed that you're going to get to by the time you're 18, 24, and 30 months is going to relate to your later cognitive abilities and to your language abilities when you're 5 years of age. So, as we look at the next slide, why does this matter? This is a genius experiment, so follow me. Children of mothers who talked more with them heard 7 times more words, 3 times more different words, and heard sentences that were twice as long. Now, what we can do is, even in a low-income environment, we can then separate the children at 18 months by those children who had moms who talked more to them and those moms who talked less to them. And then we can ask what their language looks like in this test, "Where's the baby?" when they're 24 months of age. Please look at the graph on the right. What you see is, in the red line, the children whose moms talked more to them at 18 months got there faster and got higher than the children whose mothers talked to them less. amount of language matters. Let's go to the second principle. Children learn words for things and events that interest them rather than for those things they don't like. Lois Bloom once called this the principle of relevance. She said, well, if it bears on the child's life, the child is likely to want to learn it. I can't tell you how many times I've been, whether it's to Disney World or children's museums, where the parent or the teacher goes in and they have an agenda and they drag those children to where they want them to go, rather than comment on what the child wants to know. The children learn better when we comment on what they want to know, rather than when we drag them to what we want to know. Third principle. Interactive and responsive environments build language learning. Here we find that if we talk with young children, not at young children, they learn better language. If we expand on what they're saying and what they're doing, they learn better language. If we notice what they find interesting, they learn better language. And if we ask questions rather than merely making demands, their language skills will be better. Let's go back to Hart and Risley. A sad bit of data, but one that you need to know and that often isn't well discussed. When we looked at those professional working class and welfare families, we found another big difference beyond amount. It turned out that the welfare families tended to use more discouragements than encouragements, and this was whether it was at 12 months, 24, 36, or 48 months of age. With their young children, they're saying, no, stop, don't do that. And what we find in the professional families is that we can even be on the telephone talking to our friends, and when they come up to us, the little kid, with something they want to show us, we seem to sound schizophrenic. We look at our little kids and we go, wow, oh yes, that's beautiful. Hi, Mary, sorry, I was just breaking my conversation. But we give encouragements rather than discouragements. In another study, in the NICHD study of early child care and youth development, in a paper that I wrote with Peg Birchinall, we looked at the sensitivity of both mothers and of caregivers over time. In the graphs that are up here now, you see that we went all the way back to 6 months of age, and then followed whether parents were sensitive or caregivers were sensitive, responding to the young children at each of these ages. And then we looked at the cognitive, language, and by the way, even mathematics for the people doing mathematic tweets, and the mathematic outcomes when we had more sensitive or less sensitive caregiving and parents across all these age ranges. The answer? The more sensitive parents and the more sensitive caregivers had the children who did better on the standardized tests. Next, video chats and television. A lot of people think that, well, the way to increase vocabulary might be to just plop a child in front of a television. Any of you who are following the baby Einstein controversy know that is not the case. But we wanted to see. I wonder what would happen if we looked at video chats. So we had 3 conditions. In one condition with 24 to 30-month-olds, we looked at live interaction and asked if we could teach 4 words to young children. In condition 2, we decided to look at what we called a yoked video training. So it was talking to some kid, it just wasn't talking to the kid at the other end of the video chat or the Skype. In the third condition, we had a video chat. In each one, we tried to teach 4 words to young children. All right, now you get to guess, and I can't see you raise your hand, so you're going to have to scream it out. How many of you think that video chat was as good as live?
Anybody? No. Nobody. Yeah, no.
Nobody here. How many of you think that video chat's going to be just like television?
Yes.
You have to vote. All right.
Video chat sounds like television.
All right, let's go to the results. And I am here to tell you, see the green bar is lower than the red bar or the blue bar? Live interaction and video chat worked in exactly the same way. How in the world do we explain that? Why would children learn vocabulary over video chats? This could turn out to be a very interesting finding for all of you. Well, it turns out that what you're doing is you're giving social interaction. You're responding immediately to young children, and they get that. And so they learn better when they have that immediate response rather than when something is not contingent to what they did. Let me give you another example. Another example comes from what I affectionately call the cell phone study. There's a natural experiment going on in our environment. Any of you, by the way, look at your cell phones since I was talking? Any of you checked your text messages? Your email? All right. Now, we all think that we're super taskers, right? Doesn't everybody think, no worry? Why shouldn't I do that? I'm still getting everything. Well, bad news is, only 2% of you, I know you all think that you're the 2%, but only 2% are super taskers. Most of us can't do two things at one time, which is why we have so many accidents when we try to text and drive. Does Wisconsin have a law against that, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, so does Pennsylvania. All right. So we take the natural experiment, the cell phone study, and we try to teach the same 4 words we did in the video chat, but this time, well, actually, we do 2 words at a time. In one case, as you can see on our little grid at the top, we teach word 1, and we have a little interruption. We have a cell phone call come in to give the mom instructions. Then she goes back to teaching word 1, and then she teaches another word, a second word, completely uninterrupted. In condition 2, we teach the first word uninterrupted, and then can you see that we interrupt the second word? Now what we're going to do, so every child gets one of the words interrupted, either the first word or the second word. And the question is, do they learn better or as well in the interrupted or the uninterrupted condition? I think what you can see by the graph on the bottom, can you see that on the right, the uninterrupted word is a little bit higher, whether it's first or second, than the interrupted word? Notice we're doing this all the time to young children, breaking the action. You do this over dinner. You even hide your phone on your lap, figuring no one will notice. Guess what? They notice. Okay, and it turns out that it's breaking the interaction, and young children don't learn as well. By the way, you're probably sitting there thinking, oh, well, of course, when you interrupt it, they're not hearing as much. Nope. In fact, when we interrupt it, the parents are so troubled by the fact that they got an interruption that they say the word more often, not less often. And the children still don't learn. Let's go to the next. Children learn best in meaningful, not uninteresting, non-meaningful cases. The evidence? Well, we have 2 recent studies for you. The first is on shape learning with 4-year-olds. What we did in our shape learning study is that we had Lilu the puppet wanted to learn about real shapes. And we made it so much fun when the kids learned by giving them a playful, you can see the Einstein Never Used Flashcards book coming out here. When they learned in a playful environment, then when they learned in a direct instruction environment, that when we tested them later with Lilu and asked only to give the real triangles to Lilu, the kids learned better from the guided play conditions than when we said, this is a triangle. It has 3 sides and 3 angles. We also then looked at spatial language, in, around, through, on top of, under. Very important, not only for language skills, but it turns out important for later mathematical skills. We did it through block play. And what did we find? When we gave young children guided play, as opposed to even free play, and we said to the parents and children, build anything that you want, or let's see if you can build a heliport, or we want you to build it exactly this way. The children in the guided condition learned those words better, and their parents used more of those words. When it's meaningful, when it's interesting, children learn best. Children need to hear diverse examples of words and language structures. There's a lot of data coming out right now to suggest that one of our jobs as teachers and as parents is not to just keep saying the same word all over again, but to try to vary it. It's a sofa. Yes, that's what we call a sofa. And it's a couch. Can you see the couch? Let's put the blocks on the couch. Do you want to move it to the sofa? By using different words and by using them in different language structures, our young children learn language better. Catherine Snow has found that the amount and diversity of verbal stimulation fosters early and rich language outcomes. Finally, vocabulary and grammatical development are reciprocal processes. We tend to have the view that if you just teach enough vocabulary, the children are going to be great language speakers and great readers. Not. Do any of you in the room know what the word syzygy means?
Anybody?
No?
Yeah,
Yes.
no one.
All right, I'm going to make you look it up later because it was an SAT word. If I gave you the SATs, if I gave you the SATs today, do you all think you'd do wonderfully in vocabulary?
No.
No. Didn't you study vocabulary? The problem is when we memorize all those words, we forget them right after the test. Right? You probably wouldn't do so well with them today. So the question is it about vocab? Here's a little trick I really want you to understand. The reason that there's a relationship between strong vocabulary skills and reading skills is because most of the people who have strong vocabulary skills also have strong, you can fill in the blank, language skills, right? If you take away or decouple language and vocabulary and you only teach vocabulary, but you don't buttress the language skills, that relationship is not going to be there any longer. So just teaching vocab devoid of language will not help young children. And the evidence is there. Words and grammar are developing in synchrony across the first few years of life. As you get higher vocab, you get higher grammar. As you get higher grammar, you get higher vocab. In a wonderful study using a bilingual sample, Conboy and Thal found that the amount of English words predicted English grammar, but not Spanish grammar, but the number of Spanish words predicted Spanish grammar. So they have to work in tandem, and just having the vocab won't do the trick. All right, let's go over them again. 1, children learn what they hear most. 2, children learn words for things that interest them. 3, it's got to be interactive. A television won't do. And if you break that interaction, children won't learn as well. They learn in meaningful contexts. They need to hear diverse examples. And it's not just about vocabulary, it's about vocabulary and grammar. Well,